I've had like this like soldier conqueror mentality my entire life. And for once, when I opened this restaurant, like this is the first like formidable opponent that I've ever faced in my entire life was business.
On the 54th episode of Passion in Progress, restaurant owner Kostas Lazanas. After a long drive from Austin to Dallas, Texas, I was happily met with an amazing meal from Kostas at his restaurant, Opa Greek Taverna. This episode takes place after having that meal, and I gotta say, if you are interested in or curious about Greek food and you live in the Dallas area or you're just passing by, I would highly suggest checking out Kostas' restaurant, Opa Greek Taverna. If you think being the head chef and owner of a restaurant is enough work on your plate, pun intended, Kostas also documents all of his journeys of being a restaurant owner through YouTube and being a creator. And on top of that, he also runs an amazing podcast called Real Restaurant Radio, where him and a co-host, Carrie Hodson, tell you the nitty-gritty details about what it takes to run a restaurant. And even if pursuing being a restaurateur isn't in your near future, I still got a lot of information from listening to their podcast, which we dive into in this podcast. So if you think that's something that you're into, I highly suggest checking out Real Restaurant Radio. As always, thank you so much to my patrons for supporting this podcast and what I create on Patreon. If you would like to support me in that way, I'm at patreon.com/Javier Mercedes. And one last note, if you were to go to javiermercedes.com and click on shop, I do have one item for sale. That is the Passion in Progress mug. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there that this episode is brought to you by the Passion in Progress mug. Without further ado, let's get into the 54th episode of Passion in Progress with restaurant owner Kostas Lazanas. What is up, Mercedes? Javier Mercedes here for yet again another Passion in Progress show where we talk to inspiring individuals and hopefully through hearing their stories, you too are motivated to go out and pursue your passions. And on today's show, I have the honor of being at Opa Greek Taverna in Dallas, Texas with the one, the only, Kostas.
Round of applause, please. Dude, you always just knock that ball out of the park. That intro is unforgettable.
Before we move on, let people know, what is your podcast?
My podcast, shameless plug, Real Restaurant Radio. I actually drew a lot of inspiration from you, if you remember all of those private messages about podcasting. Mm-hmm. And I have a podcast, and I actually forced my friend to do the podcast with me. And basically, we're two restaurant owners, and we just shared with the world everything that it takes to run a restaurant. And I knew whenever I was getting into the restaurant business, it was such a closed off, veiled curtain onto what it takes to actually run a restaurant. No one really talks about that, and it's not what you see on Kitchen Nightmares. So we just wanted to kind of like open up Pandora's box and like say like, guys, this is what it really takes to run a restaurant, and that's what it's all about, just giving away that information. And I think giving away knowledge is a beautiful thing.
How long have you been doing it?
So we just recorded our 20th episode, and it's coming up on a 1-year anniversary.
Awesome.
We're busy restaurant owners, so we don't have as much time to devote to it as you do with Passion in Progress, but we do give it a fair amount of time, and we are passionate about it.
Talk about your location and what it was like starting the restaurant. Was it back in 2013, 12?
13, yeah.
So back in 2013 when you started, because I know you hustled to save up the capital to start your business here. Go ahead and take us back to that and run us through what it takes to even just start the restaurant in general.
Yeah, so anybody who wants to do anything or make any big moves, it takes a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Money's the biggest barrier to entry, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have money, you can't make moves. You're not a player. Mm-hmm. So I realized that early on. I realized that at age 18. So from like 18 to 25, I just, buried my head in the ground and just worked and worked and worked and worked. And there was no parties. There was no vacations. It was just work like a madman, like talking like 70 hours. Excuse me.
You left high school, didn't you? To do that?
Yeah, so that was just because I guess I was too mature for high school. I'm a high school dropout, technically. I never got my diploma. I found out about dual credit, and I was like, dude, I just don't need high school. I got all my credits already. I'm already taking calculus AP as a junior. Like I don't need to come back my senior year. They're gonna stick me in study hall classes and like all these different classes that are like fluff classes. And I realized early on like that I had already accomplished. I'm already as great as the seniors were. And I realized like that was a waste of my time. And it's so funny because this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk came around recently, and everybody's just like sapping up his like information and his preaching. And like I was preaching that 10 years ago. And like I was like, why buy something if you're not gonna use it? And so many of these kids today are going to college and dropping 20K, 30K. Remember how much those books are? Like $400 for one book? Like that's ridiculous. It's a scam. And I think as an entrepreneur, as you open up your eyes, it opens up your eyes. Like when you take a bite of that apple, that forbidden fruit, when you open up your own business, you realize that everything's a business. No one's in it for your good. Like they don't care about your education. They care about making money. You're just a product in the game of capitalism.
The other thing, though, that I want to bring up is what you thought military school was and all that stuff, too. So just to give people a background of your skill set as a leader and everything that was there, too.
I was 12 years old, and I was like, watched one too many Rambo movies, as most 12-year-old boys do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be this like perfect soldier. And I remember very vividly this movie called Soldier, starring Kurt Russell. And it was like this perfect machine soldier. And I wanted to be that. And like, I actually went online, and this is AOL dial-up back in, 2000. And I printed off these sheets. And like, this is the military school. And I found out the Marine Corps was the most hardcore branch in the military. So like I typed in Marine Corps, and like I had to be 18 years old, and I was only 12 years old. So I was like, that's not going to work out. So I typed in Marine Corps school, and this Marine Military Academy actually in South Texas, in Harlingen, Texas, popped up. And I went down there at 12. I left my parents and everything, and did the whole thing.
But it wasn't what you expected.
No, it's sad because when I got down there, I was really disappointed because I wanted to be this machine. And I turned out it was like all these like kids that were like products of like rich parents that weren't around. So they became bratty. So the parents just put a Band-Aid on it with their money, thinking that like $20,000 a year by sending the kid to military school would help the kid. And I was just surrounded by all of this like non-motivation. It was the opposite of what I wanted.
From what I remember, it became like you became like a dad to them, or like you were. I
was babysitting. Yeah, I was babysitting
them.
A bunch of kids that didn't want to be there. It was so horrible. And I made the joke in the podcast that like, ironically, I'm actually babysitting a bunch of servers today in the restaurant business. But no matter where you go in life, I mean, you're gonna be babysitting. The more you grow in any structure, any organization, a manager is a paid babysitter. What does a manager do is managing, is babysitting. A babysitter manages the children. A manager babysits the employees, right?
Yes, you have much more experience in that role than I do. So from there, talk about what you did before you went to start your restaurant, because obviously you were hustling in other restaurants to get a feel for running your own.
Really cool. So the whole reason, and a lot of people are looking at me, if you're watching this on YouTube, that I don't exactly look Greek at all. And my mom is 100% Texan, and my dad's from Greece. Like he's 100% like from, like he jumped ship and like from Greece. And in fact, all the Greeks in Dallas, they call me the Greek redneck because
I feel like you probably fit it.
Yeah, I do. But that's really cool because like that's my whole niche is like I want to make Greek food fun, and like I'm like a liaison for Greek food to Texans. So that's awesome. Yeah. So after military school, I dropped out, and they were really upset. Again, it's so funny looking back. They were upset that I didn't go back my senior year because I was a $25,000 asset to that company. Right? If my dad had paid for me to go back my senior year, the school would have made $25,000 more. That's how much tuition is for a boarding school. It's so funny looking back at that. It's all business. It's sad, but that's just how life is whenever your eyes are opened up to the world of business. It's all dollars and cents, unfortunately. So I went to Eastville, which is a local community college. I was like acing every class because everything was just so simple, because everything is so dumbed down for like the low income students to make them like pass the classes. And I'm over here like this like super hardcore college preparatory military militant studying, like unceasingly studying all through the nights. And I come to this like community college. I'm like, drop your lowest test grade and replace it with your highest test grade. Like, it was crazy. 12 hours is full time. I was like, how many classes is 12 hours? Like, that's 4 classes. I was like, give me like 10 classes. So I got my associate's degree in 1 year, which was actually pretty easy to do if you're living with your family. Just so many college kids go out and play too much, to be frank. So I got my associate's degree, and I was like, Dad, I'm ready to drop out. I'm ready to open my own business. And he's like, no, son, you can't drop out because maybe you can't handle it and you need a backup plan. So he told me, that was my best Greek accent, by the way. But yeah, he told me, get your college degree. I'll pay for it. If you suck as an entrepreneur, which a lot of people do, you can always use that piece of paper to go work and push paper somewhere else. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't need it, but if you're paying for it, I'll do it to make you happy. So I got my bachelor's degree in entrepreneurship in business, and then open up the restaurant.
But you did work in other restaurants before.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did.
exactly.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I did. So it was so. I mean, again, my dad was really hard on me being an immigrant. He was like, you raise some money, whatever you raise, I'll match. So from age 19 to 25, and it doesn't sound like a lot of money now, but I raised almost $60,000.
Sounds like a lot of money to me.
It sounds like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, $60,000 buys you a few pieces of commercial equipment. Like, it's so crazy that you work for dollars and pennies, and then you spend it thousands of dollars at a time. $5,000 for this, $4,000 for that, $8,000 for that. And next thing you know, it's all gone in the blink of an eye. It's crazy how the commercial world works.
Besides your equipment, there's also permitting. One of the ones that I didn't even think about is when you're playing music. Like, can you explain like what you have to pay just to play music at your place?
Yeah. So when you own a restaurant, and I can't speak for all the other businesses, but it's like they see you making a little bit of money and everybody's trying to take from you. That's what it feels like. Like, give me a slice of that cake. Like, everybody wants a free ride. And when it comes to music, and as a YouTuber, I'm learning more and more about it, but there's all these like licensings and royalties and like proprietary information. And there's like 3 or 4 companies that are, I mean, we call them the pimps. We call them,
because what value are they providing to you?
And all they do is collect. And what value? And honestly, though, Javier, is like, what value do they provide to the artists? So yeah, BMI, great company. And there's a few other ASCAP. There's a few of these companies basically that they regulate what is played in restaurants. So depending on your square footage, depending on the amount of live entertainment you have, depending on how many TVs you have, they base all of that stuff. And then they'll send you a bill in the mail, and it's like, you got to pay X amount of money to play live music or to play music even on your radio.
My mind is blown right now.
As restaurant owners, you pay or you don't pay. And then there's actually been some restaurant owners that have had lawsuits against them. Cause like, that's like, we're trying to run restaurants. They're only trying to like, create law papers to like sue you,
Yeah. It just baffles me that that's a thing, but I guess it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Kind of, I guess. I don't know. What's interesting to me is I feel like if you're a radio station, they're getting taxed or whatever that is. And then they get the secondary payment off commercial entities, like, because I imagine Target has to pay the same thing if they're playing music over their speakers, but I just didn't even know that was a thing.
There's so many things that customers that sit down and eat at a table say, why is this roasted chicken $15 when I can buy a whole chicken for $5? Like, there's so much that goes into that dish, and it's not the food. Like, the food cost for a good operator is around 25%. But the profit margin for an operator is, 3 to 4%. So between 30 and 97%, there's all of that overhead. There's so much overhead. It's such a low profit margin business, and that's why so many restaurants go under is because of the profit margins. I mean, it's all about volume. If you see a restaurant that is not pushing volume, they're probably not going to make it.
Talk about the different revenue streams for a restaurant like you, because it's not just people coming into the store, correct?
100%. So we actually started off, and right off the bat, and my co-host, Kerry Hodson, he worked on it later on because he didn't have quite as much restaurant experience as I did. But, we launched with a catering menu. So we do a lot of catering events in addition.
So there's one spot, yeah.
There's one spot. Also, just going out and doing like weddings, stuff like that. So you can cater a wedding.
Yeah.
So whether they pick up the catering or whether you just provide like full China catering. So that's another thing. Recently, and this is kind of going a little techie, but all of these online ordering platforms, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Eat24, DoorDash.
Is it beneficial towards you?
It is. It's how do you say this? 70% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
So you're talking about the percentages that they take off the top from just the order in general?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Like Uber Eats, Uber is taking anywhere. I'm sure they work out better deals with like McDonald's, like McUber, I think they have, or something like that.
I didn't know that was a thing, but okay.
I think it is. But for most restaurants, it's somewhere around 30% that they're taking from every restaurant around the United States.
And
thousands of restaurants.
And you can't price your items higher on that platform?
You can, but then you start...
People come in and then they...
Yeah, and then... you can, and a few items I have, just because like there's such a low profit margin already, like my New York strip steak, stuff like that. But you just, you don't want to price yourself off of the menu either. But my whole thing though with Uber Eats, I try to turn a negative into positive, and that's what I do in anything in my life, is these are potential customers. So I'm using Uber Eats as a marketing tunnel to have possible new customers in my restaurant by doing like a buy one entree, get one half off, dine in only. So maybe you order off Uber Eats because you're at home and you're just scrolling through your phone. You've never been to my restaurant before. You eat the food and it's freaking amazing, which I think Javier could probably attest to.
Yeah, we had a meal before starting this podcast. If we haven't said it already, it was awesome.
But anyway, yeah, you feed the people, and then they're like, "Wow, this food's awesome! Oh, look, I got a coupon: buy one entree, get one half off, dine in only. Let's go check out the restaurant." They come inside, they see how beautiful the decor is and the ambiance, and the service is amazing. And next thing you know, they're customers for life. That's the way I look at it.
Another really cool episode from your podcast was the 80-20 rule. Explain to me what that means to you, and just give a brief example of whatever you want to at this point.
I mean, for all your listeners out there, you guys can relate to this too. Like, when was the last time that you wore the other 80% of your clothing? You probably only wear 20% of your clothing that you own. That's a fact. By the theory
of 80-20
of the 80-20 rule. And you only like in an organization, in a business organization, 20% of the people do 80% of the work, or 80% of your problems are caused by your bottom 20% of staff. Or on a menu, there's 20% of your entrees are selling 80% of your revenue, type thing. So that thing can be like, for some reason, it's a weird phenomenon, but it can literally be, brushed across the entire spectrum.
Give an example of like, why does that matter?
I think just as an entrepreneur, just be cognizant of like what you can do to kind of help hedge against that, or just come to terms of realization of that. So like, for instance, with the employees, if you have, those bad employees, maybe don't focus 80% of your attention on the bottom 20% of your employees. Like that might not be as effective. So when it comes to basically like time management and stuff like that, it really helps you kind of check yourself every now and then. That's what's so great about that principle.
Well, speaking of time management, talk to me about how it's been being a content creator, YouTube, owning a restaurant, and doing a podcast?
It takes a lot of focus, a lot of discipline, and you gotta sacrifice. Something's gotta give. My dad told me that all the times. Something's gotta give. Like, you have to get, it's a give and take. So whether it's your relationship, whether it's your business, whether it's your health, something's gonna give. Mm-hmm. There's no free meal, right? And for me, what I've sacrificed is sleep and health. I'll be frank. I don't sleep nearly as much as I used to. I put on like this like body fat that I never had before. I'm rocking the full dad bod right now.
For those that don't know, he used to be a bodybuilder of sorts.
Mr. Teen Texas 2007. Just wanted to plug that in. Actually in Austin, yeah, I won the MPC teen division.
He has photos of him being very very swole person.
Yeah. So yeah, health has always been. I mean, with the military and with bodybuilding and all these things, health has been a really like central part of my life, and like that's kind of been on the back burner. And this new passion of creating content and creating videos, whatever they call us YouTubers. We're YouTubers essentially. I don't think we like that name, so we call ourselves creatives or we call ourselves content creators. But us YouTubers, which is what we are, it takes a lot of time to create these videos and the upload schedule. But man, I think we talked about this over dinner time, just the beauty of seeing like what you created and like that you like capsulate that time and you have those moments forever. And you have them in a genuine meaning, not quite like a photo, but like something so much more than that. Like it's so complex. And I don't think we realize how complex like the videos that we create are, because we're just in the middle of making them. But I think looking back 30 years, like in the future, 30 years in the future, looking back, we're going to realize, wow, like I'm so glad I did that.
It'd be interesting to see what the difference is. Like if YouTube content now becomes the VHS of 30 years, like if somebody's like, oh, you're looking at a YouTube video, like if that is the like just the aesthetic of what a YouTube video is, and then like if you were to look at a VHS tape now, just see the bars come down and everything, but then in the future, if it's classified like YouTube is the new VHS, that's legit.
I think that's 100% going to be a factor. I was just thinking that like a hologram would pop up from the middle of the table and we'd be watching that. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you watch something
like in
on
3D space. Yeah,
exactly. Like you watch a flat screen, like that was like so 2020. Right?
So true. So true. Can you talk about events and how those relate to your business?
You can't create it and they will come. And I think that's where a lot of YouTubers fail at. Like, let me just make the video and they will come. And that's why I want to bow down to you and say how awesome of a job you're doing with your podcast. Because so many podcast people are just creating the podcast. Well, I can cook the food and so can your grandma, and that's great. But that's irrelevant. Anybody can cook.
Yeah, you said that on one of your podcasts, but I related it in terms of YouTube. It's like, how many cooking channels are there on YouTube? There's so many because everybody can cook. Yeah. But continue your what separates you.
But yeah, like with the podcast, and that's why I was saying I was congratulating you, is that you don't just upload a podcast, and that's why your podcast has grown exponentially. As a business owner, me analyzing your podcast and everything you're doing, the marketing and the promoting, you're going into Reddit, you're going in, you're tweeting it. You're doing all these things, you're tagging it. That's what makes the product sell. The product itself has got to be great, and that's just got to be a given. But everybody's got a great product. Yeah. So after you have a great product, then what do you do? And that's the thing with restaurants. Like everybody who owns a restaurant has great food. Not everybody, but most restaurants, I mean, the food's good, Yeah. But like, what's the difference between like that $1 million restaurant and then that, restaurant that's not,
a hole in the wall somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So a buddy of mine owned a craft brewery. He made an event for his dog's birthday. And I was like laughing at him, like, dude, your dog's got a birthday. That's stupid. Like, why waste people's time by creating a Facebook event for a dog's birthday? He's like, dude, like, that's the whole thing, is people just want an excuse to have fun. You name it, and they're going to have fun. We just celebrated Cinco de Mayo. What is that? I mean, we had Greco de Mayo here, which was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, just marketing and promoting. There's no longer, you can't build it and they will come. I mean, we live in this world. that you got to take full advantage of all the social media resources out there. And that's what we've been doing here at Opa.
How is that translated? Have you seen any of what you've done on YouTube relate back to what you're doing here with the restaurant?
I don't know, Javier. I don't know. So initially, I think, so yes and no. I do make a lot of video content that I'm able to like blow people's mind with, like laymen, people who don't know about video and video creation, video editing.
Yeah.
And I think we're a little dull to that because that's what we do all the time. So when we see like an awesome B-roll sequence, we're just like, oh, that's another B-roll sequence. We're a little numb to that. But whenever Jackie down the street watches that, she's like, oh my gosh, like you're amazing. And so I think utilizing YouTube and utilizing all those things have helped out, but I didn't realize that it was going to have this like global effect where like I'm impacting people from all over the United States, and I'm creating relationships with people all over the United States. And I've had travelers actually, drive all the way to my restaurant just to eat here because of the character that is my restaurant in my YouTube platform.
Living example, sitting right in front of this microphone.
Yeah, I mean, literally our relationship, we would never in 1,000 years have crossed paths ever if it wasn't for me building that relationship with you through the medium of YouTube. And I think that can be said with millions. I think that can resonate with like your audience, or with, we live in this new world where like we create relationships with complete strangers.
What do you see in the future for what you've done so far in the YouTube space, podcasting, building your authority as a restaurateur?
So I would never have gotten into YouTube if I didn't have the restaurant, because the only way I was able to justify dropping $20,000 on YouTube equipment was because it was a marketing expense for the restaurant. And I probably didn't have to spend that much money, but as you know, it takes money to make money type thing. And I knew I wanted a certain look and a certain quality to the YouTube videos that I could only have with the equipment that I bought. I don't know, like I take each day at a time, and it's a wild, wild west. There's so many at my level right now where I'm at in the restaurant game. There's so many opportunities that present themselves to me. And this is not YouTubing. This is just like restaurant touring. You can buy and sell business at my level right now. I can buy and sell. I can sell this restaurant and start another restaurant tomorrow. That's one factor. And, this restaurant could probably sell for around $300,000, and I could probably open another restaurant for I could probably take $300,000 and I can probably borrow, $1.5 million and build something from the ground up. The thing is, though, is as you get older, as you have children, that maverick, you start to lose that maverick, like that wild horse. And that's one thing that I never want to lose. Like I always want to be uncomfortable. Yeah. And that's why I love this whole YouTube journey. It's like I've conquered everything in my entire life. Nothing has ever been like unconquerable. Like I was Cadet of the Year, and I was Eagle Scout of the Year, and Boy Scout of the Year, and I was, whatever they gave me in college, all these awards, and I was like a 25-year-old restaurant owner. I've been like this relentless machine of conquering, and I know that's like not like really politically correct these days, where everything's supposed to be like furry and happy and everybody wins. But I've had like this like soldier conqueror mentality my entire life, and for once, when I opened this restaurant, like this is the first like formidable opponent that I've ever faced in my entire life was business, because business will chew you up and spit you down, and it doesn't care about you at all. Like there's so many players in this game called business, and like it's the most ruthless game. It's the most hardest game you can play.
What does the term money follows value mean to you?
Money follows value is only a small part of that equation, because so many people have value but don't execute the means of making money with that value.
What I like about your restaurant, and one of the things you talk about in your podcast, is how much you've niched down on being a Greek restaurant in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, don't get me started. It's a double-edged sword. Yeah, niching down. But what I meant by that is that like you've got to be smart about it, right? Because everybody provides value. I mean, look at these YouTubers. Everybody's providing this value, but I love. We have a mutual friend, Cody Warner, that really is like, this is how you make money. Because everybody can create the videos, but
it's true. I feel like that's one of the reasons why because he's successful for so many reasons, but I think one of the biggest is because he's real about the value that he brings to the table, and he gives you the nitty gritty in terms of video and marketing of like, look, this is what I did. I think the coolest thing, one of the examples for the listeners that don't know, is for one of his videos, he just up and went and he walked to a whole bunch of different businesses and straight up just walked inside and be like, can I make a video for you today? And I think he talked to like 10 business owners that day, but his whole concept for that video was how do you make money as a video guy, and he was breaking things down, but he throws it for a twist, and he goes and he actually does everything that he's talking about, which I think is super cool.
And I think he made a video. I think somebody ended up paying him that day.
Yeah, he put pen to paper, and he actually does what he's saying, which I think is really cool. Which is one of the reasons why I like the kind of content that you make, because it's like, hey, I'm actually a business owner. Yeah. I actually know what I'm talking about because I'm doing it right now.
I think I do anyway. But yeah, money doesn't follow value. I think that's too broad of a term, because a lot of people provide value, and a lot of people that provide value do not know how to harvest the money that they could garnish with that value, if that makes sense.
I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. The reason I ask is because I just like to see what other people's opinions are on it. I feel like there's a lot of people that can say things on Instagram and then not act upon them. But then, like we were just talking about with Cody, what's really cool is like he says stuff, but he actually does the things. And then getting opinions from somebody that's actually been through the thick of things, running a business themselves. It's good to hear it from somebody that's actually doing it, you know?
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
In the content space, I believe in the beginning you set out to be like, hey, I can start making content, and then this will drive more traffic towards the restaurant.
That was the initial. That was the initial reason of getting to YouTube, because I was already creating videos for Facebook, which a lot of my customers, 40 to 60-year-old customers are primarily on Facebook. The initial reason to get on YouTube was. The initial reason to buy camera equipment was to create better content for all platforms, primarily Facebook, to be frank, just to reach out to my customers. But I started uploading to YouTube, and random people started messaging me, and then I started like getting involved in the community involvement. And you started watching other people's content, and I keep on saying his name, but I gotta thank Cody Warner, because he created that Facebook group called No Small Creator. And just being able to engage with other other YouTubers, excuse me. I just gotta call them YouTubers, because that's what we are. We have to just come to terms with that terminology. The whole thing just shifted and pivoted to like, I just want to create content because I love YouTubing, and I love like this like subculture of YouTubers, and it's the camaraderie is amazing.
You do the restaurant, but then talk about where that's taken you as a creator, business wise.
So yeah, it's so funny. I just got done shooting my second wedding yesterday.
Well, funny how that works.
On
you buy some sweet cameras, you start learning how to do some B-roll, and they're like, I wonder how I can do this for money.
It's so funny because in the restaurant business for catering, you gotta like cook the food, load up the food, bring out the food, bring like 2 or 3 assistants. You might charge like $3,000 for a catering, but you can charge $3,000 with you and a camera. And I'm like, whoa, like that's pretty sweet. So I can let the restaurant do its thing and make money. And I know like some videographers that are making like $100K a year. So if I can get the restaurant to run itself and I can make an extra $100K a year shooting weddings, like how awesome is that? And I'm doing kind of what I love. Not that I should take away from the restaurant in any means, because like this is at the end of the day my bread and butter. But it's all a hustle, and that's what life's all about. And the fact also is like, if the restaurant for whatever reason like fails or dies or whatever, or if I sell it, like I have this whole other set of skills to fall back on that I never had a year ago.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious though, because you guys talk about on your podcast how well a restaurant will do if you are not there. So what does that look like if you are splitting your time now being a videographer versus being at the restaurant?
So that's pretty much what I've done this entire year. I'll let go a little bit of the restaurant and let it kind of run itself a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much of an impact I had on my restaurant. Sales are down a little bit this year. I don't know 100% if that's from me not being in the restaurant. Like I'm still here quite a bit. And with 2020 technology, I actually have like live security cameras on my phones and on my monitors. I have like 4 monitors at my editing bay, so I can like keep the restaurant there in the corner of my eye. So if I see anything, I can just make a phone call. So there's a lot of things that we can utilize. And that's what's so great about YouTube is like you all of a sudden you're like this tech guy. You turn into like this tech nerd with YouTube. So now I know that I can like stream and do all these different things on YouTube. Like I learned about mobile desktop. So like I can like if they have like if I need to do something at the restaurant, I could literally do it from like my editing office that's off site from the restaurant, and I can like print something here in the restaurant like, hey, grab this print off and give it to somebody. So that I didn't know about any of that stuff before I was a YouTuber. So it kind of goes hand in hand with tech and YouTube, and you know.
So it seems like you're, especially just this year, you've been working towards letting go of being here as much, because the way that you guys talked about it on the podcast was very much like, if you're not here, then it's not going to have like the breadth that it needs to like to grow and prosper.
I think a lot of small restaurants, and I think the fact that I'm like this huge, I don't want to like boast about myself, but the fact that the fact that I'm like this huge like personality, and like I'm so interactive with the guests. Like I'm so passionate about like each and every one of my guests, and I just want to like shake everybody's hand. I want to know everybody's name, and I just want to like, you know, like come be part of my, that's what makes me such a, like, that's the restaurant business is like
hospitality. Yeah.
And so I love like nothing, like I'm so happy when I work at my restaurant. Like I'm so happy. There's not a day that I'm unhappy.
Would you say that's what it takes to be a good restaurateur?
If you don't like people, I probably would not own a restaurant if you don't like people.
It doesn't seem like the right kind of business.
Maybe not the best thing for you.
Yeah.
Because it's all about people, whether it's like your service staff or whether it's the customers themselves. Like you're dealing with people nonstop. And I think it's so funny that so many YouTube creators are so like camera shy or so shy of public. It's like, that just is a foreign language to me. Like,
so you didn't have any trouble in front of the camera?
I mean, a little bit just staring into the lens, but once you watch 1 or 2 videos and you see how your eyes looking at the lens or looking off the lens, but it's like vlogging in public, like, I don't know, all that stuff came natural to me. I think that's just being an extroverted restaurateur.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll cap the podcast off. Why do you do what you do?
Why do you guys see? You told me you weren't going to ask me any hard questions, but this is like a deep philosophical question here. Why do I do what I do? I don't know what I do. It fell into my lap, Javier, and I don't regret it for one bit. If I could take it back, would I own an accounting firm versus a restaurant? Maybe. Would I own a doctor's office and have doctors working for me versus servers? Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say unless you were doing what they were doing. And I think, you meet so many awesome people on this podcast, and I'm sure everybody's happy with what they do. Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, if everybody's happy with what they do, it's hard for me to say if I'd be happier doing something else. Is there like this, the higher the highs, the lower the lows, I say. So, with all this excitement and happiness, there are times where I'm leaving the restaurant at like 3 a.m. and like I haven't seen my kids in like 3 days because I'm working in like 3 18-hour shifts, And I mean, it could be a dark, lonely, sad place as much of it as is happy, because like all the customers are here and you're happy, and then they all leave and you're alone at the restaurant and you're sad. So the question was, why do I do what I do? Mm-hmm. And I do it for the customers, and that's what it's all about. Like everything that builds up to like a Friday night dinner shift is worth it. So if I'm waking up at 5 a.m. to start prepping and start, slicing calamari or, dipping bread into some batter, whatever it is that I'm doing, Friday night when the place is packed and everyone's like smiling and happy, I guess I do it for those moments.
I gotta ask. Ask the questions. So I have to dive deeper with that. What about your family then?
What about everybody's family? I think a lot of people that work super hard, families are compromised. A lot of if you ask, have you asked any other entrepreneur that same question? If you have, what was their response?
Like in my opinion, it would be family first, then work second.
Family first is right, but like, they call in, hey, you need to podcast with Donald Trump tomorrow. Then families come second all of a sudden. Like, that's funny how that works. Like, it's family first until it's convenient.
I guess.
Unfortunately, that's what it is. It's family first while it's convenient. That's such a cliche thing to say. Family comes first, and everybody can say that until they don't come first. And for instance, it's like my designated day off is on Wednesdays, but like I have a catering for 60 people, and I'm like, honey, I gotta do this catering. I can't say no because we gotta survive. I mean,
but you're talking in terms of like, we need actual money. That makes sense.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, family first. And I agree. And so we actually have it. And a lot of people ask me that question all the time as a restaurant owner. How do you like balance family and work life? And, luckily any entrepreneur that's out there, not everybody's Bill Gates where that are making billions of dollars. A lot of entrepreneurs, just like a lot of actors or a lot of YouTubers, are struggling to put food on the table. You got to do what pays the bills, and a lot of us are struggling out there. Even us restaurant owners, not everybody's a Red Lobster or Olive Garden, and so I never say no. There's a movie that Jim Carrey made the other day called Yes Man. Mm-hmm. He literally cannot say no to anything, and that's where I'm at in my restaurant. And I've done like Hawaiian luau's, and I've done all kinds of crazy stuff that people just ask randomly. And the answer is always yes, because I'm trying to pay the bills.
I appreciate that you're strong in your opinion of like what it actually takes to be successful as an entrepreneur. And that may be the reason why some people falter in their entrepreneurial journey. Second question I ask at the end of the podcast is to get from where you were, and let's say it's right when you dropped out of high school, to like where you're at now. Like what advice would you give to somebody to get to where you're at now? So
I was digesting so much content before YouTube, from like financial gurus, Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey is another guy who's really awesome. And I remember he said it pretty well. And that was like, live like no one else so you can live like no one else. And that means like in your 20s, start investing in a Roth IRA. If you don't know what that is, Google that term, start putting that money aside every month. I have a financial advisor that I force her to take money out of my account every month. Like, do not ask me, just take it. Because if you don't force yourself to save, no one's going to save for you. And I think we live in this culture where it's just like buy and spend and purchase. And there's so many of these companies that are taking money out of our accounts every month. This is like a new phenomenon. Like everything is just automatic withdrawal. And, if you don't take care of yourself, no one will. And that's one big thing about me being a restaurant owner. Like a lot of these servers that I have, not only am I a restaurant owner, but I'm also like this father figure. And I feel like it's like my duty to educate them and inspire them and motivate them to like wake up and smell the roses, that no one cares about you anymore. Like you're an adult and no one's going to be there for you, and you got to take care of yourself. And that's the harsh reality of life.
I love how you answered the question because it gives legit practical advice in terms of, well, you should save money by putting it in a Roth IRA. Where can people find you?
My YouTube channel, first and foremost, because that's what I'm really passionate about. Kostas Lazanas, and that's Kostas Lazanas, realrestaurantradio.com.
And I would strongly urge, if anybody just wants to learn about the restaurant business, and you guys talk the like legit nitty gritty material of what it takes to run a business, Real Restaurant Radio on iTunes and
all those
on
places,
YouTube.
all those places.
Yeah. And if you were to be in Dallas, Texas, where could people find your restaurant?
Oh yeah, then I also own a restaurant, by the way. It's Opa Greek Tavern. Well, it's actually Taverna, which is actually the biggest mistake I made because I put the A at the end of tavern, and no one can understand how to pronounce that word. It's Taverna, but it's like tavern, that's how they act whenever they see the A. But yeah, that's the name of the restaurant. It's Opa. It's Opa, by the way, just means like ole or yeehaw. So it's a term of like excitement. It doesn't not mean grandfather. That's German. Maybe the next concept will be a German restaurant, but that's what Opa is. And it's actually like in a little suburb of Dallas, just east of Dallas. And yeah, if you guys do come by, definitely just mention that Javier sent you, and that would be awesome.
If you guys would love to share out this podcast, don't forget to tag Kostas, and I believe it's Kostas TX on Instagram. Yeah. And Javier Mercedes X on the Instagrams. Till next episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Live a life of abundance, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.